UK public sector spends a great deal of money with construction companies. Councils face a huge demand for new builds, schools, office buildings, and especially new housing. Likewise, many councils still retain housing stock, along with many other property assets, which need to be maintained, refurbished, and occasionally demolished. This means there's opportunity for construction companies, both big and small, to compete for works. The opportunities are even greater if you start to consider applying for tenders run by housing associations. Unlike the private sector, however, where a contract can be awarded based on a quote alone, the public sector tendering process can be a bit daunting and is definitely more time-consuming. As mentioned in our previous videos, public bodies like councils, NHS trusts, universities and schools are funded through public money. This means their spending is scrutinised by everyone, and so they need to seek assurances from their prospective suppliers that they can deliver the works properly, to the quality standards they expect, and affordably. This is the case across all industries, not just construction tenders, and so this means there are a few more hoops to jump through if you want to win a public sector construction contract. Whilst this will be a lot of work, the benefits of getting your hands on a contract are huge. Not only do public bodies pay on time, once you get that first contract, you can leverage this experience when applying for the next. The trick is to get your foot in the door and get on the books of your local council or housing association. So what does a construction tender look like? If you've ever looked at the contents of a construction tender, understandably it can be overwhelming. The tender document set will likely contain upwards of 10 separate documents, and the buyers aren't always organised in the way they present these. You'll probably see tender instructions, design information, site plans, layouts, etc., preliminaries, and maybe a schedule of works, design and construction requirements and a specification, standards, safety information including asbestos surveys, contract information. A template contract will usually be an industry standard such as a JCT, and a pricing schedule. So where do I start? This isn't a tender writing tutorial, but our approach to bid writing starts with a review of the tender instructions. See what the buyer is looking for and whether it's something your company can do. Here you'll see how the buyer intends to score your tender. Make a note of the criteria, as this will be useful when going through the other documents. We typically create a Word document listing each question on a separate page and add to this later. Pay attention to any criteria that are essential. This includes pass-fail criteria. Essentially, this means that if the company can't meet this criteria, you may as well not apply for the tender. Public bodies will be strict on this, and they're generally not very flexible unless you can demonstrate with evidence that you meet equivalent standards or have alternative solutions. Next, you can tackle the other documents. Starting with the specification, read through this document and start copying relevant bits under each criteria page you've already created. The task here is to record what the buyer wants to see in a response, so that you can talk about this in your submission to each question. Do this for all the documents and then you're ready to start writing. Features and requirements of construction tenders. Every tender will be different, but construction contracts cover very similar ground in the kind of questions they ask. You'll probably come across a question on health and safety procedures, how you manage risk assessment method statements, RAMs, your build standards, your quality assurance process, environment and sustainability, project management and staff resourcing, and your experience. Let's look at these in a bit more detail. Health and safety. Do you have a responsible officer with relevant qualifications? Talk about personal protective equipment, PPE, you provide your staff. Risk. Who's responsible for risk in the company? What risks you foresee in this project and how they'll be mitigated? And do you have insurance? Standards. Do you conduct inspections and how frequently? Qualifications of staff and subcontractors. The quality of materials you use and do they meet the relevant British standards? And accreditations your company has, such as ISO 9000, sustainability, how you intend to lower your carbon footprint, what modern methods of construction you use, what energy efficient materials like insulation, double glazing, etc. do you use, how do you source materials like timber sustainably, and do you use a local supply chain. Project management and resourcing. Describe your team and the subcontractors you have access to. talking about their skills and expertise, how you keep track of the program of works, making sure things are kept to schedule and to budget, what training do you provide your team, and how do you keep up to date with changes to legislation and industry best practice. Experience. Have you completed contracts of this scale and complexity before? Give examples of similar contracts, what issues you faced and how you overcame them, and what was the outcome of each project. Did you meet the budget? Did you deliver on time? Things to keep in mind. We've celebrated huge successes this year, winning just shy of 11 million in contract values for our clients in 2020 so far. Part of our success comes from understanding the priorities facing public sector estate regeneration teams, asset management teams, and housing and property teams. Social value priorities, renewable energy, and sustainable build practices are becoming more and more common in the construction tenders we see. With the government's ambitious desire to become carbon neutral by 2050, the pressure is on local government to carry this out, and one way they're doing this is by tweaking the way they commission build projects. It's not enough to show that you have a qualified team of multidisciplinary workers or that you have robust risk management and health and safety practices in place. These days, to win that tender, you also need to demonstrate how you source sustainable supplies from your local merchants and how you support your team in their personal and professional development. You need to be able to demonstrate that you can stay on top of modern methods of construction, are aware of and use the newer environmentally friendly materials like insulation and prefabricated components. You need to support apprentices, involve yourself in the local community, helping out where you can. You need to invest in low emission initiatives, from the big things like low emission vehicles in your fleet to small things like having no single-use plastics within your environment management policy. Even introducing a car or vehicle sharing policy or cycle to work scheme gives you something to talk about for these kind of questions and helps you to demonstrate to the buyer that you are like-minded in your pursuit for a more sustainable future. A big part of the trick to writing a winning bid comes from researching what your buyer values and showing how you will help them achieve their objectives. This video has focused on a single stage tendering process, usually called an open tender, with just one invitation to tender stage. Sometimes you'll face a two-stage process, which will have an initial selection stage. We talk more about this in another video. The link is in the description. Two-stage processes are common for tenders for construction frameworks, but this is a different kettle of fish. We don't have time to cover this here, but we do have a video on frameworks in general. A link again is in the description. And if you'd like to see a video dedicated to construction frameworks, let us know in the comments. For more information about tendering and procurement in the UK public sector, please visit our website at www.frameworker.co.uk.